first of all, thank you guys for turning up. I think there's still going to be people, joining in. They'll keep joining in. It's okay. Thank you for turning up on time, and I'm very sure that this webinar will be particularly useful. So, one thing I want to get a sense from this audience, and this is, way to start using the chat box to interact. So how many of you are planning fall 2021? How many of you are planning spring 2021? If you can just text me your responses, I can get a sense, and then I'll focus a little more on that intake. I am assuming fall, but I see one person with a spring, but oh yeah, fall. Okay, the person who is, the only one who said spring, don't worry about it. I will, focus on that a little bit as well. So yeah. So before I start off, I have another question for you guys. So whether you're applying to fall 2021, whether you're applying to spring 2021, when do you think is the best time to start, or was the best time to start? When do you think you should start the process? Why don't you text me your responses? A lot of people, August, oh no. So a lot of people, putting answers such as, now I'm going to go a step ahead. The right answer for that is yesterday, right? And I'm going to share a timeline as well. You should have started by now. I understand the circumstances this year are slightly different. However, the sooner you start, the better it is. And ideally, your entire process of getting ready to submit your application should have started, a little while ago. So let me start off with the basic timelines, and whoever is applying for fall can focus on that aspect. Who is applying for spring can focus on that aspect. So let me just pull up the timeline itself, and I think you'll get a much better sense of the entire thing. So can you guys see the timeline?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. So yeah, simple little bit of color coding on this timeline. If you are applying for spring 2021, please focus on the red dots. That's your spring, to the left side of that line. And fall 2021 is blue, to the right side of the line, right? So the best way to figure out your application timelines is for you to, work things out backwards, right? At the end of the day, your final objective is to submit your application, right? That is the end objective. Now, how you plan all the steps before that is going to depend only on that end objective, right? So typically for all you guys who are looking at fall 2021, your deadlines, when you have to, when all your application deadlines close for all the top universities all over the world, be it the US, Europe, anywhere it is, between December 2020 to March 2021 is when all your deadlines are going to be. Beyond that, you're highly unlikely to find deadlines for a lot of top universities. So just keep that date in mind at the bottom of your screen. You have to be done submitting your applications between December 2020, March 2021, right? Now that we are clear with that, here's my advice to you with regards to this, right? Now, some universities have scholarship deadlines, some universities have priority deadlines. It's all very confusing at this time of the year, right? Before you have your short list of universities to plan for all this. Now, my word of advice to you is to forget this December, January, February, March, and just keep in mind that by November of this year, if you're applying to fall, you want to be submitting all your applications. You have to be completely done with the process. So please keep that deadline in mind. You have to be done with everything, your application submissions, and all of that by November 2020. Yeah. So please, keep that in mind. Now, for you guys who are in spring, if you focus on, the red dot, I'll just shift to the spring guys for a, couple of minutes. Your deadlines are going to be around, July, August. But keep in mind that for spring, especially, a lot of these deadlines are rolling, right? They will not tell you. They will say it's an absolute deadline. But in our experience, we've seen that people applying earlier for spring entries get their admits earlier as well. So if you go ahead and apply 1 day before the deadline, 2 days before the deadline, you will have to keep in mind that quite a number of those seats in those classes might be full, right? So for all you guys working backwards to the spring, June, July 2020 is when you should be submitting your application. So that's very, very close for you. Now that's done, right? So that's when you submit your application. Let's work backwards again. There are 3 or 4 major components essentially for the application, right? And I'm sure you guys who are thinking about applying for universities would have figured this out by now. You need a GRE score, you need a TOEFL or an IELTS score, you need your statement of purpose, you need your recommendation letters, you'll require certain other additional essays that will pop up in the application. Now, in your application, essentially, you're going to have statements of purpose, letters of recommendation, all of which, if you're Indian students, including recommendations, is something you will have to, draft yourself. So it's a time-taking process. So, like I told you, by November, you want to be submitting all your applications to have the best possible shot of securing an admit. You will take around 45 to 60 days, depending on how free you are, whether you have a full-time job, whether you're in college, all of that. 45 to 60 days on the safer side to get all of these application documents going, right? To start from scratch and then ensure that they're in very good shape and tailored to each university you're applying to. So 45 to 60 days, let's work backwards from the 1st of November. This means that all of October and September is the time you want to be focusing very, very strongly on your uh, SOPs and LORs, right? Now, this would be the ideal way to plan it. Now, if you're focusing only on the SOPs and LORs in the months of September and October, what does that mean? What does it mean for the next biggest part of your application, the GRE? The answer to that is very, very simple. You want to be done with the GRE by the end of August, right? You absolutely, absolutely want to be done with that. Yeah. Now, in that spirit of working backwards, let's talk about the GRE prep again and the number of attempts for the GRE. Now, focusing on the GRE, you have to keep in mind that you always, always, always have to give yourself enough time to give the GRE a second or a third attempt. Now, this is not meant to discourage you, but you have to understand that the GRE is an aptitude test. And however well you're doing on your practice tests, it really comes down to how you perform on the day, for the GRE score. We've seen people who get great scores on their first attempt as well, but a large number tend to, crack that great score on their second attempt. So you want to be giving yourself enough time to give multiple attempts of the GRE, 2 or 3. Universities do not care about the number of attempts you give to the GRE. Most often, they only will consider your best score and the score that you choose to report. When you have that opportunity, you might as well give yourself enough time to give those multiple attempts, right? Now, between now and August 2020, how many ever times you want to give the GRE, give it and space it out accordingly. Specific questions with regards to that, I'll be happy to answer during the question answer session, but plan your timelines such that 2 or 3 attempts, whatever it is, you're not writing the GRE beyond August, because September, October have to be dedicated to your SOPs and LORs. And by the 1st of November, you have to be submitting all your applications without fail. Applying well before your deadline gives you a better chance of getting into the university versus applying 1 or 2 days before the deadline. We've seen this happen for a lot of programs, without any exceptions, pretty much, right? So finish your GRE by the first week of August and start giving your attempts whenever from now. Now, there is a little bit of time, between now and August, obviously quite a bit of time, in fact. And typically what we've seen with regards to the most successful candidates with the application process who do it perfectly, with pinpoint accuracy and efficiency, is that they give their first attempt around April, right? So they start prepping from about, January, February, and they finish their first attempt by April. So they're giving themselves about 1 to 2 months time of initial prep, give their first attempt. If they do well, it's great. You're sorted. You can focus on the rest of the application. If it doesn't go well, they give themselves another 20 to 30 days of prep and give the GRE again in June, July for the second time, or maybe even, give 2 attempts in the months of June and July in order to get the ideal score. Now, considering the extraordinary situations this year, I'm assuming that a lot of you will not have had the opportunity to give the GRE in April, even though they did allow an online, exam option. But either ways, it's fine if you have that little bit of a delay. It was unforeseen circumstances. But please, 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 make sure that you're giving your GRE sooner rather than later. June is almost upon us. As soon as the exam centers open, or whether you want to take the online GRE option, in the months of June and July, if you have to give your 2 attempts, prepare and do it. beyond August, try not shifting your GRE, right? So that is the essential timeline. And let me also talk about one very important aspect, because we do process a lot of free consultation calls where people are asking us about programs. And I find it very, very surprising that people prep for the GRE first and then figure out what program you're applying to. And that is not the right approach, if you ask me. You have to know what you're applying to and then give the GRE, because the GRE score requirements typically vary from program to program. And also, if you're giving the GRE, you are planning a higher education. And if you don't know which course or which stream you want to get a higher education in at this point, it's not very good, right? So typically, candidates who do really very well, um, by December of last year, they figured out that, okay, this is what I want to be applying to, and then they start their GRE prep from January and February and move ahead. So that's the very first step as well. If you've not figured out which program you want to apply to, it's high time you start planning for that, because the application processes vary subtly from program to program. So that's another aspect of the application timeline, right? Now, let me cover one minor point, justification as to why I said certain things. Now, why am I saying that finish your GRE by August 2020? It's not, for to create a little bit of panic. The reason why I say this is because juggling your GRE preparation, um, and your statements of purpose and your recommendation letters, and I'm assuming that a lot of you are either in college or have a full-time job, and juggling that full-time job is going to be quite a task. Now, in the past, I've seen people do that very successfully as well, right? They were giving their GREs in September or even October. They were working simultaneously on the SOP, and it all worked out well. People who did that in the past have made it to places like Carnegie Mellon. I've known people who've made it to Stanford as well doing this, right? However, what I'm saying is, when you're thinking about the process this early, that is not an ideal situation to be in. So don't panic and start getting into a hurry and getting worried about the entire thing. Do your best to finish it by August 2020. We are giving you the ideal process. If you have any other particular doubts as to certain delays happening from your end and how you need to work around that, I'd be happy to answer post that. Now, before I move into the question and answer sessions, or slightly more specific course specific stuff. So yeah, so for the spring guys, right? Again, I'll start from the top for you guys who are applying to spring. So where I left you off the last time was that your deadlines are going to be around July, August 15th. But I also told you that a lot of these are going to be rolling, right? So it's going to be, the sooner you apply, the better it is. It's going to be first come, first serve. So you really, really have to start submitting your applications by maximum the end of June or the middle of July. In the worst case, even if it goes to August, it's fine, but try not making that happen. Ideally, you should have given the GRE by now. But again, because of the COVID situation, if you haven't been able to do it, then consider giving the online GRE exam, and finish off everything by the time June comes to an end, and we'll have to do a hurried application process in July. Still been done in the past, it's possible, right? I don't think there's too much of a point me delving back into March 2020, January 2020 at this point in time for the spring guys, because unfortunately the time has passed. But look at this sort of timeline, and then figure out from your end as to what needs to be done, because it will still be helpful, because you can, even though it's postponed, it can still be done, right? So that's essentially the entire timeline sheet. Don't worry, we will be sharing the timeline sheet with you. I think we can either email it to you, or if it's possible to put an attachment in the chat box, I'd request Watson to do that. It's free, of course, don't worry about it. We're not going to charge $50 or something for it. But yeah, we will share that with you, and then you can go through it at your leisure. A couple of final pointers before I go into your question. Now, these are program specifics, right? Now, one thing which I find very, very surprising, and what is very, very common, unfortunately, with students, is that you're giving your GRE, you're writing your SOPs, you're getting your recommendation letters drafted, but nobody opens the application until 20 days before you want to submit it, right? I get people 10 days before the deadline opening the application, and it's fine. Filling the application won't take you more than, honestly, if you just sit on it properly, a couple of hours maybe at the most, right? But the issue there is, if you don't open the application till the last minute, you are going to find uh, essays in the last minute which are going to surprise you. And I've seen scores and scores of students come to us about 5 to 6 days before deadline saying that, hey, I have this personal statement or this scholarship essay which I have to work on. All of a sudden, I never knew it existed, right? That's on you. Yeah. You are doing this entire exercise to submit an application. You are not doing this to write an SOP or write an LOR, right? This is not what it's about. It's about submitting a completed application. So you may complete your SOP, you may have a very good SOP, but if your application itself is not complete by the set time, you are in a lot of trouble. So please start working on your SOPs. That's the first step. Start working on it from the month of August itself. Once your SOP is in a decent stage or a middle stage, before August ends, by the first week of September, please open up your applications and start filling them, because that will give you time to assess what additional essays are there, and therefore you will not be caught unawares, right? That's one pointer. Second specific point that I've seen through my experience consulting with scores of students: between program to program, the timeline and effectiveness of the application varies. If you're applying to computer science, all of you on this call, and if you've taken free consultation calls with me, I would have told you this as well. If you're applying to computer science, it's absolutely imperative that you apply as soon as possible. Why do I say this? Even though universities will not tell you that it's a rolling deadline, computer science sees twice as many applications as every other master's program, right? Twice as many, 2 times more than everything else, right? So when there is that volume in terms of applications, universities will prefer reviewing these applications well before the deadline so that they can hand out their decisions. Now, if there is a deadline on the 15th of December, if you submit the application on the 1st of November, your applicant pool or your competing pool is a lot smaller, because not too many people, despite the good advice around, they do not apply by that time. So if you tick all the boxes in terms of your GRE, your GPA, for a lot of top schools at that point in time, they will give you the interview call or the admit immediately, right? Because you don't have that much of a strong applicant pool. Now, with the same profile, if you apply, say, on the 14th of December, before the deadline, there is a likelihood that there are 5 or 6 more people who have applied by then who have a very similar profile to you. Now, when that happens, they start, picking the minor aspects of the profile, in terms of the cohesiveness of your research, in terms of your vision, in terms of your research papers. So an admit which might have been in your pocket about 30 days ago, by delaying that application by 30 days, you're only doing yourself harm. So computer science guys, my pointer to you, apply as early as possible. Even if you can finish it off by the middle of October, I would urge you to try and do that, right? You don't lose anything. There's only everything to gain. Second type of applicants that I'd like to bring to your notice: engineering management. Very popular. I'm sure a lot of people on this call are looking at that as well. My advice to you: engineering management applications are harder than other applications because they require more essays. They are more nowadays like B school applications than engineering applications. When that happens, it's not just one SOP. There's going to be one SOP, one social service essay, one personal statement. It's going to be 3 short answer essays that you have to answer, and you will not even need your SOP for that application. So you want to be starting to fill out your applications a lot earlier so that one by one you can tick them off and submit them. If you open the MEM applications a little late, you might be overwhelmed with the amount of work that's coming in. And the typical thing that I get from a lot of students is that, oh, I did not know this is there. But to be honest, it is your job to know what essays are there and be ready with them on time, right? So these are the 2 specific cases that I would like to address. Now, that is all I had to say in terms of my timeline sort of gyan. I hope it wasn't too confusing. Even if it was, I think you can ask your doubts and we'll be able to clarify. I think I'm going to start taking questions from people. Just give me one moment. What is a good GRE score for an MEM program? So again, not a timeline specific question, but I'll tell you what a GRE score is for a good GRE score is in general for an MEM program and all programs, right? So one thing you have to understand about the GRE is that it's viewed by admissions committees more as a filtering parameter, right? So it is the only common metric that they can judge applicants from all over the world. Your GPA is not, because the scoring system at perhaps an IIT may be more stringent than certain other colleges in India, and it may be very different from a lot of colleges all over the world. The GRE is the only standard parameter that they can test your aptitude on. That being said, when you're applying to technical master's programs, um, your GRE will not make too much of a difference beyond a point. So to answer your question, typically what we've seen is once you cross a 315, a 315 on the GRE, um, universities really don't bother much with the GRE score. If you're getting rejected with a 315 plus, then it's possibly because of the rest of your profile and not the GRE score itself that you're getting rejected, right? Now, in terms of specific MEM programs, I've seen people with a 308, 309, 307 make it to places like Duke and Cornell as well, which are top 3, top 4 programs. But there are exceptions as well, and I'm sorry I'm giving you a complicated answer, but application processes are a little complicated. Stanford, the lowest GRE score I've seen getting in is a 328. So, and that's typically the average score that people get into, right? But in your mind, if the rest of your profile is good, just keep in mind that once you cross a 315, a 315, you're pretty much in the game for a lot of top universities as far as the GRE is concerned. Now the rest of your profile is a completely different story. I hope that answers your question. um Importance of GPA in applications. All right, that's a good question, again not related to the timeline, but sure, I'd be happy to answer. I wish I had a more positive sort of answer to this, but the GPA is very, very important, right? Now, depending on the university, the focus on the GPA varies typically. Now, it's always a good idea to maintain a decent sort of GPA to show that you're academically consistent, right? If you have a 7.5 plus, a lot of top universities do take you in if the rest of your projects and your other outside the classroom activities are strong. And again, by outside the classroom, I do not mean your sports and all of that. Unfortunately, for technical masters, this doesn't matter much. What I mean by that is your internships and the other projects you may have taken up externally. Um, Universities such as the University of Southern California, Texas A&M in the past, Cornell in the past have shown that they are a little more obsessed with the GPA when compared to others. I've not seen too many people with a GPA below an 8 make it. Um, Certain other universities like Duke, they look at the profile a little more holistically, but again, the lowest GPA I've seen is a 7.5. So again, if you have a 7.5 plus, you still have a shot at a lot of good universities if the rest of your profile is solid. If your GPA is an 8 plus, then you are really having a very, very good shot at quite a few top programs. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, absolutely open to follow-ups. What can students do to improve their profiles and incorporate picking up new skills into the pipeline? Um, this is actually very program specific. So if you could type out, the specific program, I'd, take that question, as well. Oh, sorry, I think there's a typo. Skills into the timeline. Okay. So I'll tell you again, unfortunately, if you're looking to apply for fall 2021 or spring 2021, I do not have a very positive answer. But yeah, we like to speak the truth here at Gradvine. So here's the thing. There's honestly not enough time for you to build your profile because you already have a lot on your plate. You are going to be submitting your applications in November, which is what, about 6 months from now. In that 6 months, you have to squeeze in the GRE, you have to squeeze in your college exams or your work. You have to squeeze in filling out the applications, working on the SOPs. Your time is packed, right? And honestly, what you've built over the last 3 years cannot be changed in a period of 6 months. If you're looking to build your profile itself, that will improve your chances of getting an admission. That should have been done perhaps a little earlier, or you can at least perhaps consider postponing your applications by a year and getting work experience or other internships and projects which have very good measurable results to build your profile. But I'll tell you what you can do to overall improve your prospects in your career, right? You can take online courses, and especially if you're applying from non-coding backgrounds, if you're applying to an MEM or an analytics, or if you're going into non-coding masters and you come from mechanical, civil engineering, chemical engineering, one thing I strongly recommend is for you to pick up certain skills in analytics. It could be programming in R, programming in Python. You can get basic or advanced level skill in that can be done even after you get your admit and go into the program. Um, the reason why I say this is because coding skills, your ability to automate processes, your ability to crunch data is something which is uh, very very important across verticals, be it as in the mechanical engineering vertical or the chemical engineering vertical. It's very very important. So it's good to pick up these skills online. Now, picking up these skills online will not improve your chances of getting an admit, because universities only care about the credentials that you get or the skills that you pick up from an accredited institution like your university, right? So online courses anybody can take up, so it's not really impressive. What this will help you with is the subsequent job search after you graduate. When you have these skills on your resume, recruiters will be far more inclined to hiring you versus somebody who do not, right? So you're giving yourself more opportunities, um, essentially. um, Next question. I'm sure a lot of you will have had this question. Will fall 2021 be difficult because of this year's situation? I think we did a whole webinar about a week or 10 days ago, which is recorded on this. You can, have a look at that as well. But I'll give you, the short answer to this, right? For guys who are applying for fall 2021, and to a lesser extent, those who are applying to spring 2021, um, it's not going to affect you too much, right? Because we've been able to see the situation through hundreds of students who are deferring their admits, who are going in fall 2020, our past students who are graduating now. The only people who are really badly affected by the whole COVID-19 pandemic are the people who graduated in May 2020. So these are people who would have joined their universities perhaps in 2018, and they're graduating now. Those are the guys who are very badly hit, right? Now, there's two aspects to it: the likelihood of you getting into fall 2021 and the job opportunities after you graduate. So let me talk about both these things. In terms of your difficulty of getting in, it is not going to change very much. Now, one narrative that I've had, and I've had questions from students, is that okay, people who got their admits for 2020 are postponing it or deferring it to 2021. So maybe that class is full, and maybe I will not be able to get it. This is not a huge issue because we've seen it actually happen with students who are deferring. First things first, not all universities are allowing that deferral by a year, right? So they're saying that, hey, you either take an online term, or at the most we can allow you to defer for spring. So that's one bunch of students who are gone. So they have to go in spring or they have to join now. So therefore, your spots in next year's class are safe. Now, second thing is, let us consider the situation that yes, a lot of people have postponed their admits and they're occupying the seats for the incoming class of fall 2021. In that case, it's still not an issue, because if your profile is good enough to get into the university will definitely take you in because you are a source of income for them. If you're good enough to be a part of that class, they are not going to tell you, hey, no, we don't want to let you in because there's no space in the class. Purely because you are a source of income for them, you're going to be paying a very high fee, and therefore they will not turn you away if you're good enough to get in. They might increase their class size by a little bit, right? So fall 2021, both in terms of job opportunities and the likelihood of getting in, I don't think is going to be too much of an issue. So you needn't worry about that. Spring guys also, it will not be as much of an issue. But again, I would recommend you sort of think of fall right now, because it just solves a lot of the other complications. If you have specific questions as to why I'm saying that, again, I'd be happy to answer. I think I saw a little question pop up which has a short answer. Is this timeline for European universities as well? Yes, it's going to be very much the same. All your timelines are going to be the same. The reason why it's the same, again, is simple logic. All of them start around the same time in Europe and the US. Universities start in the term known as fall or autumn, which is typically around August, September. It starts at the same time in the US and Europe. Therefore, the entire deadlines and the working backwards and when you should be done with your competitive tests, all of that is going to be the same. So I think that pretty much answers that question. Um, Moving on. Will an internship or work experience in public domain help in getting entry into a good college with scholarship? I do not know what public domain means, but let me assume that it's work experience at a regular company. Simple answer to that: yes. Work experience always helps because of a couple of reasons. First things first, if you're working for a couple of years, they're not going to let you sit idle. there is going to be some sort of projects that you're going to be working on, and there's going to be some sort of results you're going to deliver that will help elevate your profile. That's the first thing. And this answers for all of you who are considering the option of work experience. Second reason why it will help you out is because when you're looking for a job after you graduate, again, if you have 2 years of work experience in a related field, it obviously makes you a much more appealing sort of hire for the companies, right? It obviously want you over somebody without work experience. One thing I would like to tell you is that please make sure that this work experience is relevant to the master's program you are applying to. If you're a mechanical engineer who's worked at a Cognizant or a Wipro in IT and you're going to apply for a master's in mechanical engineering after 2 years of work ex, that is shooting yourself in the foot. It has to be very relevant to your final master's program that you're applying to. And I think the person who asked this question clarified what public domain is. You mentioned the parliament or essentially the government, right? Again, depends on the program that you're applying to. If it is something related to policy, if it's something related to economics, if it's something related to I don't know, even potentially management or something of that sort. Development economics, absolutely yes. If you can get work experience working in the public sector with the government, I would strongly recommend you do it. Specifics of what work you want to do, it will take a whole separate conversation that we'd be happy to have with you. Again, for specific profile evaluations, if you're asking us, unfortunately, we cannot do that on this call because you have to understand that there's at least 50, 55 others on this call who have questions as well. We cannot analyze your specific profile. If you want a specific profile evaluation that is very specific to your case, please schedule a free consultation call and we'd be happy to do that. Can you tell us what the timeline looks like for MS plus PhD applications, direct PhD applications? Very much the same. Although I would like to bring to your notice, for PhD applications, the amount of work you have to do is a lot more. The major extra work that you have to do, apart from your SOPs, apart from your LORs, apart from your GRE and all of that stuff, is that you have to network with the professors. And you have to figure out, first of all, what kind of research you want to be doing at the university, what your thesis is going to be about, 4-5 years down the line. That thesis or, the topic of research has to be in line with the kind of research you've done in the past. And you have to find a professor who is doing similar work at this point in time and write emails to them and network and lobby with them a little bit, saying that these are my interests and I'm interested in applying to the program. And then you submit the application. Obviously, this is extra work, and these emails have to be very, very carefully crafted. It cannot be a "Hey, what's up? How are you doing?" kind of email. It has to be a very, very properly written email, almost as good as an SOP, pretty much. So you have to write these emails, network with them. A lot of them are not going to reply, so you need to hit multiple people from multiple universities. That process you have to start right now because it's a lot of work. So yeah, the deadlines, the timelines, all of that is going to be the same. Just the magnitude of work is going to be, far tighter. So keep that in mind as well. Right. Again, quick question. What is your advice for strategizing the timeline for European universities? Like I said, very much the same. Your deadlines will vary maybe 10, 15 days. Your timeline is going to be the same. So what I told you is for the US and Europe completely, right? In general, it's not going to be very different for Europe at all. For EU universities, they ask for physical LORs. Do they, Suraj? I don't think so. But again, I really haven't heard of a university in a very long time ask.
Yeah, a couple of them might, but I think they've also rolled out to online applications now. I don't think there are any specific EU universities that I can put that ask for letters. They definitely do ask for physical sets of transcripts, maybe, but definitely not letters.
Yeah. So again, a simple answer to that: nobody really asks for physical LORs to be mailed again, man. They want to be up. They want them to be uploaded on a letterhead. That's something that can be very easily done because letterheads are available with professors. You can send them the email, they can print it out, and then they can sign it, scan it, and upload it themselves. So I don't think this is going to be a huge issue. COVID is not going to affect that at all. All right. This is a question again: is fall semester better than spring semester? How will the timeline look for people applying to both intakes? Whoever asked this question, can you real quickly text me whether you're talking about the US or Europe, because that is going to make a difference if you're still on the call. Right. So let me assume that this is for the US because this, a lot of people are looking at the US. So for the US, I would strongly recommend you look at a fall intake because of a couple of reasons. The first reason is very, very simple. So I'll spell that out real quickly. Um, every US university for every program pretty much has a fall intake. The same is not the case for a spring intake. Fall is the traditional intake, like how schools start for us in June. In the US, schools and universities start in the fall, which is August, September. So every university, every program will give you the option of a fall intake. So the number of options for you are a lot higher, right? That's the first advantage. Second advantage of fall over spring. In the US, if you have to intern in the summer, and you'll have to understand that it is in the summer that a lot of internships are offered, you will need an authorization known as a CPT, right? Bear with me, keep this term in mind. CPT, you need to intern at an American company. Now, if you want to intern in the summer, where a lot of companies offer you internships, US visa regulations state that you need 2 semesters or 9 months of an education at an American university for you to get CPT, right? For you to be eligible for CPT and hence do an internship. If you join in spring, which is January, by the time the American summer kicks in July, you will have spent only 1 semester on campus. Therefore, you will not be eligible for the CPT, right? So you're losing out on that summer for an internship, and internships are very, very important because they either convert to full-time jobs or secondarily they help you in your job search later on because you have that work experience of 3 months of an internship on your resume, right? So my recommendation is to stick to fall because of the couple of things: the ease of doing the internship in the summer, and secondarily, you simply have more programs as options that you can apply to. Right. Again, a question which is kind of sort of with regards to timelines only. Advantages of working before going for a master's. How can a working professional plan their application process? I've already spelled out, I think, earlier the advantages of work experience. Work experience only will help you as long as it's relevant to the master's program you're applying to. It'll help you have a better profile because you have better projects. And secondarily, if you have a lower GPA, it helps you cover that. And thirdly, when you're graduating after the program, somebody with work experience has obvious advantages because they have a little bit more domain expertise than somebody without work experience. So yeah, it is an advantage. Only advantages, honestly, if you have work experience for your masters, as long as it's relevant. Um, how can a working professional plan their application process? Listen, the timelines are like I told you, right? Whether you're working, whether you're not working, this is the timeline you have to follow. And definitely, if you're working, your company is not going to, let you sit idle and essentially apply to programs. So it's going to be a little more tight. But just make sure that your application timeline is a little more spread out, right? Now, the timeline that I gave you, right? Apply by November, work on your SOP September, October, finish your GRE by such and such a date, is for people who are extremely busy only. Um, I'll be very honest, but again, don't take this as a reason to slack off. If you are not working, or if you have a lot more free time, or if your fourth year, first semester is a little chilled out, you will you can do the application process, even a little later. You'll still be able to complete it comfortably, and you'll do fine. The timeline that I gave you, if you're working and if you have a very busy working schedule, stick to what I said, and you'll be fine. I've given that timeline on a safer side. And when you're applying for a master's program, it's always best to be, well planned and on the safer side itself. So, that's the strategy I gave you, essentially, right?
Simply a couple of general questions. Let me just take those. Any drawbacks of working for a year and then applying for a master's in finance? I'm currently doing engineering, have a GPA of 7.5. Again, of course, scheduled a free consultation with us, but I'm just going to talk to you about like Sreekar said, the benefits are absolutely great when you have relevant work experience. Having said that, we usually recommend at least 2 years of work ex if you are getting any sort of work ex, because 1 year is neither here nor there. So the ideal sort of recommendation for most of the programs is either go straight out of college or go after 2 years. 1 year is neither here nor there. You don't get enough of the work or the kind of projects that you want to be doing and stuff like that. So that'd be the first thing. Do top universities in the US offer STEM OPT extension for MEM? Every single, I should say, most of the MEM programs, as long as they are STEM verified, will have the OPT extension. very, very few MEM programs, and again, get in touch with us, we'll tell you which ones. But almost every single MEM program is STEM verified, therefore they will have the OPT extension. Masters in finance with experience or without experience depends on the undergraduate degree that you're pursuing. If you come from a mathematical quant sort of an undergraduate degree, without experience is okay for a master's in finance or a financial engineering. However, if you have some sort of experience, it's always helpful, especially experience in the core finance domain itself. So definitely something that will be helpful. Again, that depends on your particular personal profile that you're coming from. In Europe, spring versus fall, which intake is better for a master's in economics? Ideally, in Europe, it does not really matter whether you're going in for the spring or the fall, because there are no immigration issues that are attached to the semester of entry, unlike the US. In the US, you have to deal with the CPT and other issues. In Europe, you will not have to deal with that particular issue. However, there are a couple of other issues that you might have to deal with. One of them is just the entire immigration sort of landscape itself, in terms of the stay back periods after you graduated to find jobs, etc. In general, everywhere, fall is the predominant term in which a lot of students get in, and a lot of students traditionally have gotten in. Spring is something that their universities have sort of started to deal with a lot of too many applications and stuff like that. So traditionally, fall is the better intake. However, it depends on your personal timelines. If spring works better, if you've already graduated and aren't really doing anything in this period, absolutely go for the spring.
All right. So there's another question: is GPA as important for somebody with 7 to 8 years of work experience? It is less important, because if it's 7 to 8 years of work experience, then your GPA is reflective of your performance 7 or 8 years ago, which may not be as accurate a representation of your current state. Therefore, if you have 7 to 8 years of work experience, your GPA does matter less. And generally, for all you guys who have slightly lower GPA, getting a little bit of work experience will definitely help improve your profile and your chances of getting into a top program. Private universities cost very much other than Ivies. Is it good to go for private or wait for public universities? Again, this is a very general sort of assumption that is made. Private versus public, good versus bad. Unfortunately, in the US, and I'm assuming you're talking about the US because you mentioned the term Ivy. It's not as simple as that, right? Now, there are certain state universities which are cheap, which are better than certain private universities as well in terms of return on investment. Now, the top 20 universities, whether they are private or they're public, they are generally expensive, and it's fine as well, because the return on investment also is going to be very, very good. Just to put it in perspective, you'd much rather spend 45, 50 lakhs on a university that has a very, very good return on investment versus 30, 35 lakhs on a university that is slightly suspect, right? So the private universities that are expensive, again, it varies from university to university, but whether it's an Ivy, top private university, the return on investment is very, very sorted. So that's the reason why I would recommend that you look at the return on investment on specific company, on specific universities, and not just generally talk about a private versus public, right? It's much more nuanced than that. All right. So I see that there are specific questions to programs. I think that is something that we will, address on, free consultation calls. If you can schedule that later, we'll focus on, slightly more general questions, which will help, the people, overall, right? Due to prevalent situation, a lot of companies are taking back internship offers. How to make up for this loss? I'm not sure if you mean by internships in India or in the US. So if you're a student right here, and if you are, your Indian company is taken the internship back, honestly, the only thing you can do is take up a project with the college, or look for an internship that is remote or that is finished, before you submit your application. So yeah, if you can clarify that, I'd be happy to, answer that question. I want to apply for MEM programs working in a core mechanical company as a technical sales and marketing engineer. Will this count as relevant work experience for MEM? Absolutely, yes. A lot of people assume that for MEM programs, for you to have relevant work experience, You would need a management work experience. That's simply not the case. Keep in mind, all you guys who are applying for MEM programs, the first prerequisite that MEM admissions committees look for in candidates is that the candidate has to be a good engineer. So if you're working in a tech role for a couple of years, or in your case after mechanical engineering as a technical sales and marketing person, that is very, very relevant to the engineering management program as well, right? Now engineering management essentially talks about how you can scale or mass produce the technology that you're working on, how you can improve them with a focus on your customers and aspects such as this. For you to gain that ability from an MEM program, first of all, you need to have your domain expertise sorted. So if you're working in a core mechanical company as a mechanical engineer, it will be very good for you applying for an MEM. You'll be absolutely fine with that. There's another question. I think Suraj, you can take this. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to get
How
into
do I
the
decide
next
between
question.
that one? Yeah.
What advice can you give a student who's coming from a chemical engineering or a non-technical background who's trying to maybe get into an analytics sort of a master's degree, right? One of the most important things that I can tell you is anyone and everyone coming from whatever background is qualified to get into a master's degree in analytics. Analytics is the ability to look at data and to make decisions or to draw decisions out of that data. It could be in whatever domain that you want to get into. So just because you are from a chemical engineering or a non-technical, non-computer science background does not prejudice you from applying, should not prejudice you from applying to an analytics degree. The way to prepare would be, of course, a bunch of online courses, even though they will not count for the academic rigor itself, but just to show that you are interested, that you've actually done something in that particular field. One other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, which is apart from all of the questions, right, is we're getting a lot of questions about specifically about what sort of profiles you guys need to have and stuff like that. One of the things that we are doing to bridge that particular gap is at Gradvine, we have a mentor network of upwards of 700 different mentors. Every single one of them at a top 20, top 30 sort of a university doing absolutely everything that you can think of. Culinary, school, baking, data science, like people keep commenting, chemical engineering, ECE, etc. So the idea right now is we're going to be starting an Instagram live sort of a campaign pretty soon, where we bring on every single mentor, every single a couple of days from now, every single two, 3 days, etc., where they will come talk to you about their profile. They will come talk to you about what they did right, what they did wrong. They will share their journeys with you, etc. So if you guys have not subscribed to our Instagram channel, please do so. It's @Gradvine. I can put the link in the chat section, etc. We're going to be starting with very, very big hitters like Aishwarya Manek, who's a MEM student at Stanford, Akash Parvedkar, PhD in computer science, computer vision at Carnegie Mellon, and at least about 100 other people that are going to be coming on live for 30 minutes. We'll put out all of the dates, all of the times, etc. on our Instagram and other social media channels. So please do subscribe to all of that. Join us, ask them questions, look at how they did things, and then plan accordingly in terms of what you should be doing.
All right. I think we've addressed pretty much all of the questions here, and we are almost coming to the end of our time as well. And this is the final bit of advice that I'll give you, considering the situation that we have at hand, right? And this is not advice as a company or something of that sort, because I'm sure those of you who've interacted with us will understand that we advise you more as seniors and as people who've been through the process ourselves, right? Because we are a little ahead of the journey from you are, and we've learned from mistakes as well, and we've learned from things that we've done right and certain people have done right. What I'm increasingly observing with a lot of people is that because of the situation at hand, they are just sitting down, waiting and watching, waiting for things to get better, right? Not proactively, doing anything to get their plans ahead, right? Now, at this point in time, if you guys are on this webinar, definitely applying for a master's is very, very strongly on your mind. Now, I am telling you today that the admission cycle will be normal. People will be applying. People will go to university. Life will go on. They will get jobs. They'll get in. They'll build their profiles. All of that. Now, the people who are going to suffer are the ones who are just waiting and watching, not taking any proactive steps, right? Yes, now is not a time where it's very easy for you to think about how to, give your GRE or, start off on your applications, work on your SOP, start on the process, interact with people. All of that, it may not be very easy to do now because of the situation. But things are going to be coming back to normal in a snap, right? All of a sudden, GRE centers are going to open. All of a sudden, your applications are going to be open like they are every single year. And you might be in a situation where you're caught napping, right? Now, I would strongly suggest you, and I'm, really imploring you at this point in time, if you are, planning to apply for a master's, and there's no reason why you shouldn't be at this point, please start working on this process now. Don't wait, thinking that, okay, come July, things will open up, and then, I can give the GRE, I'll start preparing then. Or, I'll start working on my applications and my university shortlisting, after some universities give confirmations. Everything will come back to normal come August, September. Purdue has already sent out a notification today to students saying that they're going to have an on-campus term. Dartmouth has said they're going to have an on-campus term starting September. So things are moving. And if you are going to wait for things to come back to the perfect normal for you to resume your work towards your application, at the end of the day, you are the guys who are going to be, in trouble, right? Because they're not going to change the deadlines for you. Nothing's going to change too much. It's still going to be super competitive. You have to make your efforts from right now to make sure you submit the strongest possible application, like you would in any other year, right? Nothing has changed in that regard. Now, how do you do this, right? Apart from, all, starting off on your SOPs, taking up a service such as ours to help out, all of that aside, start, doing your research. Like Suraj said, we're giving you resources constantly. We are going to start Insta live sessions with our mentors, periodically. I think it's going to be every week or twice a week, from various programs. Use this opportunity to actually go to them, ask them questions, what they did right, proactively take that stand and start building your application and building your profile, right? The people who start right now typically do a lot better than people who start in, September, October. That's the case every year. That's going to be the case this year as well. COVID has not changed the competitiveness of the application process. It's not going to give you leeway to relax, right? The world is going to spin constantly. So please be a little more proactive even from now. um, Start working on your application, start thinking about your shortlist, do your GRE prep. Keep following, our channels, because we put out quality resources such as webinars like this. We keep putting out informative articles. We keep having interactive sessions with mentors on our Instagram. So don't switch off and, wait for things to get normal. Be proactive and upskill and build your profile constantly. That's my advice to you. Now is a brilliant time for you to actually do that. If you're working, you're probably working from home, which saves you a lot more time. If you're in college, it's even better. You literally have nothing to do. So please, please, please do not wait for things to get better. Use this time to proactively, get a very, very strong application in place. And always, we at Gradvine are, always around to help. So if you want to schedule a call with us, you can absolutely do that. If you want to email us with a question, you can do that. Keep following us. We'll have a webinar. I'm planning to, with a guest speaker. In fact, I wanted to ask you guys this. We are going to do a GRE preparation tips and tricks webinar very soon. So I wanted to get a sense of people on this webinar itself, how interested you'd be in attending that. We are going to get possibly GRE instructor to do that, or I can do it myself as well. So if you are interested, just respond in the chat box. We'll get a sense of how soon to do that. That's something that we would absolutely do. I think we're getting quite a few yeses. So be on the lookout for that. Again, attend webinars like this, get the information, interact with the right people. Just please be proactive. Thank you so much for showing up. I think it was very well timed. I think very, very good questions as well. I'm hoping again that the timelines were well explained. If I didn't do a good job, or if you have doubts, please don't hesitate to schedule a call again. We'd be happy to explain that to you individually as well. We will try and make sure that the timeline is emailed to all of you as well, so that you can have it as a reference point. And apart from that, thank you so much for spending this time. We hope this is good. And yeah, the recording will be up as well. If you want repeat viewing, just follow our YouTube channel, and we'd be happy to do that. If there's nothing else, I think we can wrap up. Thank you very much, guys.